Okay, get this. Have you ever heard about a pope who, like, gave birth during a procession?
Oh, wow.
Sounds crazy, right? Like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
But for centuries, people actually thought it was true. It's the legend of Pope Joan, a woman disguised as a man who supposedly became pope.
Oh,
We're
wow.
going deep into this historical mystery today. We'll see
Yeah.
what's fact, what's fiction.
Sounds fascinating. It's amazing how that story, really captured people's imaginations for so long.
I know.
We're talking artwork, depicting Pope Joan,
Wow.
routes of papal processions being changed
Real.
because of it, and even it appeared in official papal chronologies.
It's incredible how much this story took hold.
It really is.
So, okay, like, when and where is this supposed to have happened?
Well, the legend puts Pope Joan in the 9th century,
Okay.
time when, well, the papacy was, let's just say, a bit less than holy.
Less than holy. What do you mean?
Well, it was a period historians have called the Parocracy.
The Paraka.
Yeah, because a bunch of powerful women were, heavily influencing the papacy, almost controlling it behind the scenes.
The Parocracy. I
Yeah.
love that term.
Yeah.
I can already see why this era, might be perfect for a story like Pope Joan.
It's pretty wild.
So tell me, what kind of evidence is there for her existence?
Yeah, well, that's where things get a bit tricky.
Okay.
The earliest written accounts we have of Pope Joan, they appear over a century after she supposedly reigned.
100 years.
Yeah, that's a significant gap.
Yeah.
Immediately raises red flags for historians.
Yeah, that does seem like a really long time for a story like this to, you know, just suddenly pop up.
Exactly. You'd think a female pope, especially one discovered, so dramatically, would have left a more immediate mark on the historical record.
Right.
But there's nothing, absolutely no mention of her in any documents from the 9th century.
Really?
Even though we have, tons of detailed records about the popes who supposedly reigned before and after her.
No birth records, no
Yeah.
mentions in letters, chronicles, nothing.
Nothing from that time. And it gets even more suspicious when you look at the specific details of the legend.
Okay, like what?
Like Pope Joan being English or having a lover who, helped her rise through the church ranks.
Right.
None of those details are corroborated by, any independent sources.
So, okay, if the timeline's all messed up and the juicy details are, not really backed up, why did the story get so popular? What are some of the theories historians have come up with?
Right, right. Well, that's the really interesting part. There are a few compelling theories.
Okay.
One idea links back to that parocracy we talked about.
Okay.
Think of those powerful women like Marozia, who, essentially controlled the papacy for a while through, family connections, political maneuvering. It's possible that the memory of these women, their influence, ambition got exaggerated over time.
Oh, okay.
Kind of distorted. Yeah.
Morphed into this tale of a woman actually becoming pope.
So like a game of historical telephone where the story gets more and more twisted with each retelling.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe people started wondering, well, if women could, have this much power behind the scenes, what if one of them had just taken the top spot?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not as dramatic as a secret pregnancy and a shocking revelation during a procession.
Right.
But it makes sense for the reality of female influence in the church at the time.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not hard to imagine how, whispers and rumors could turn a powerful woman into a legendary female pope.
Right. Right.
But weren't there other theories too?
Yes. There's another theory. It centers on a real pope, John the 12th.
Okay.
He reigned about a century after the supposed Pope Joan.
Okay.
Now, Pope John the 12th was, to put it mildly, not a model of papal virtue. Oh, this I have to hear. What made him so scandalous?
Well, he was notorious for his immoral behavior. Openly had multiple mistresses.
Where?
One of whom was even named Joan.
Oh, wow.
Some historians believe that, the scandalous life of John the 12th combined with the name of his mistress might have, contributed to the Pope Joan legend.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can see how those elements, a scandalous pope, mistress named Joan,
Yeah.
could be kind of woven together into a more elaborate story.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like taking pieces of real history and, weaving them into this narrative that's both captivating and subversive.
I like that.
Yeah. But there's another theory that's even more intriguing,
Oh,
one that ties the legend to a much larger historical event, the Gregorian Revolution.
a revolution. This sounds big. Tell me more about it and how it, might relate to the story of Pope Joan.
Sure. The Gregorian Revolution was it was a major power struggle between the church and secular rulers. Essentially, it was a battle for control, influence in Europe,
Oh, wow.
with the papacy trying to, assert its independence from kings and emperors.
So, like, really high stakes, the fate of Europe kind of hanging in the balance.
Absolutely. And this is where Pope Joan comes in.
Okay.
The Gregorian reforms were all about strengthening the church's authority,
Right.
emphasizing, the masculinity and power of the papacy.
You mentioned this idea of papal masculinity before.
Right.
Why was it so important for the Pope to be seen as strong and masculine?
Well, in medieval society, masculinity wasn't just about biology.
Mhm.
It was about embodying certain qualities, virtues, leadership traits.
I see.
The Pope, as the head of the church, was supposed to represent like the ultimate form of spiritual masculinity.
Oh, okay.
A female pope would have, challenged that entire framework. And that's why I think the legend might have emerged as this kind of cautionary tale during this period.
A cautionary tale. You mean like a way to reinforce anxieties about papal authority and like the importance of a male leader, during this time of upheaval and reform.
Exactly. It's like saying, look what happens when a woman tries to, take over the papacy. Chaos, scandal.
Yeah.
And it gets even more symbolic when you consider that during this period, popes would sit on these elaborate ceremonial chairs
Okay.
with holes in them.
Right, chairs with holes. I'm picturing something a little uncomfortable. What were those for?
Well, the holes weren't originally intended for anything, scandalous.
Okay.
They were ancient Roman symbols of power,
Oh, okay.
connecting the papacy to the legacy of the Roman Empire.
I see.
But as the legend of Pope Joan spread, those holes, took on a whole new meaning.
Oh boy. I think I see where this is going.
Yeah.
So the story goes that after the Pope Joan debacle, the church instituted a hands-on verification process
Yes.
to make sure all future popes were indeed male.
And make sure.
And where did this inspection allegedly take place?
You guessed it, on those chairs.
You're telling me they were checking under the Pope's robes, while he sat on those chairs during his coronation?
That's the legend.
Wow.
Now, did this actually happen? It's highly unlikely.
Right.
But it's a fantastic example of how a story, even if it's fictional, can become like intertwined with physical objects and rituals,
Yeah.
shaping perceptions and beliefs.
Those chairs meant to, symbolize power and authority. Now forever linked to this idea of proving papal masculinity.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But wait, I thought you mentioned another story that kind of echoes the Pope Joan legend.
You're right. And this one is even more dramatic because it's, based on actual events. It involves a woman named Guglielma of Bohemia. She arrived in Italy in the late 13th century, preaching a message of radical spiritual equality.
Oh, wow.
Now, this was a time when the church's power was, absolute.
Yeah.
The idea of a woman preaching, such a message, it was seen as incredibly dangerous.
I can imagine. What exactly was she preaching that was so controversial?
Well, she claimed to be an incarnation of the Holy Spirit, a female Messiah figure.
Wow.
And she attracted a pretty devoted following,
Okay.
including a nun named Mifrida, who became her most ardent supporter.
A female messiah. That's a bold claim even for the 13th century.
It was absolutely radical. Mifrida even declared that Guglielma was, destined to become pope,
Really?
ushering in a new era of feminine spiritual leadership.
Wow. So we have another challenge to the all-male papacy.
Uh-huh.
This time from a woman who claimed to be like divinely appointed. What happened next?
Well, as you can imagine, the church didn't, take kindly to these claims.
Yeah.
Guglielma was declared a heretic.
Mm-hmm.
And tragically, shortly after her death, her body was exhumed and burned.
Oh no.
Mayfreda met an even worse fate she was burned at the stake for her unwavering belief in Guglielma's message.
That's a heartbreaking
Yeah, it
story.
is.
It's a stark reminder of the dangers women faced when they, challenged the church's authority.
It certainly is. The tragic end of Guglielma and Mayfreda highlights the very real anxieties surrounding female spiritual power.
Mm.
During this period, it's almost like a twisted mirror image of the Pope Joan legend.
Right.
One fictional, one all too real,
Right.
but both, tapping into the same societal fears about women in positions of religious authority.
Both stories, centuries apart, reflecting those deeply entrenched anxieties about women and power. It makes you think about, the lasting impact of these narratives, how they, shaped perceptions, limited opportunities for women.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating to consider how, those anxieties about papal masculinity we discussed earlier might have been influenced by stories like these.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the legend of a female pope could cause such a stir, imagine the reaction to a real woman claiming spiritual authority.
Right.
Challenging the very foundation of the church's, power structure.
It's as if the legend of Pope Joan served as like a cautionary tale, a warning against the dangers of allowing women to hold, positions of religious authority.
Precisely. But these stories, while highlighting the dangers, they also demonstrate the courage of these women. They dare to challenge the status quo.
Right.
To envision a different kind of world.
Yeah.
A world where women could hold spiritual authority and leadership.
They were pioneers in a sense,
Yeah.
paving the way for future generations of women who would continue to fight for equality and recognition.
Exactly. And their stories remind us that history is not, a simple linear narrative. It's a complex tapestry.
Yeah.
Woven with countless stories,
Right.
some well-known, others hidden or silenced. And it's up to us to uncover those hidden stories, to give voice to those who have been marginalized.
Right.
And to understand how their experiences continue to shape our world today.
It's like we're, piecing together a puzzle, searching for those missing pieces that help us, see the bigger picture, the interconnectedness of events and ideas across time.
That's a great analogy. And sometimes, even fictional narratives like the Pope Joan legend can be valuable pieces of that puzzle. They can reveal the anxieties, beliefs, preoccupations of a society in a way that purely factual accounts might not.
Absolutely. They offer a window into like the cultural psyche,
Yeah.
the hopes and fears that shaped people's understanding of the world. It's amazing to think that a story, even a fictional one, can have like such a profound impact.
It really speaks to the power of storytelling, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How narratives, both real and imagined, can, shape perceptions, influence beliefs, and even inspire action.
So we've talked about the evidence or lack thereof for Pope Joan's existence, explored the historical context that gave rise to the legend, and examined the parallel story of Guglielma and Mayfreda. But I think the biggest question still remains unanswered. Like why does this story continue to fascinate us, even in the 21st century? Why does the idea of a female pope continue to like capture our imaginations?
That's the question, isn't it? What is it about this legend that resonates so deeply with people, even centuries after it was debunked?
I have a few thoughts, but I'm curious to hear your perspective first. What do you think explains the enduring appeal of the Pope Joan story?
Well, I think it's a combination of factors.
Sure.
On a surface level, there's the element of surprise, the sheer audacity of the story. A woman disguised as a man rising to the highest position in the church. It's a story that, challenges expectations.
Yeah.
Subverts traditional power structures.
Almost like a cinematic thriller.
Yeah.
Full of intrigue, deception, and a dramatic reveal. It's a story that's hard to resist, even if we know it's not true.
Exactly, and it taps into our fascination with hidden histories,
Right.
with the possibility that there are secrets waiting to be uncovered,
Yeah.
alternative narratives that challenge our understanding of the past.
It's like a historical puzzle that
Yeah.
we can't quite solve, and that uncertainty, that sense of mystery, keeps us keeps us coming back for more.
Exactly. But I think there's also a deeper level of appeal, something that resonates with our values and beliefs. The legend of Pope Joan speaks to those who, question the traditional roles of women in society and the church.
Yeah.
It provides a glimpse into a world where women could hold positions of power and authority,
Yeah.
challenging the patriarchal structures that have often limited their opportunities.
It's a reminder that throughout history, women have strived for equality, for recognition, for the chance to fully participate in all aspects of society.
Right.
And the legend of Pope Joan, even though fictional, offers a glimpse of that potential, that possibility of a world where gender is no barrier to leadership and achievement.
Precisely. It's a story that speaks to the ongoing conversation about gender roles,
Yeah.
about the need for more inclusive and equitable structures, within the church and society as a whole.
The legend of Pope Joan is not just about the past.
Yeah.
It's about the present and the future. It challenges us to confront the ways in which women are still marginalized, excluded, and silenced. It reminds us that the fight for equality is far from over.
And it inspires us to imagine a different kind of world, a world where women are not just equal to men, but can even surpass them in leadership and spiritual authority.
That's a powerful message. But there's also a darker side to the legend, isn't there?
There is.
It's a reminder of the dangers women face when they dared to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
The very real consequences of defying societal norms and expectations.
You're absolutely right. The tragic fate of Guglielma and Mifreda serves as a stark warning, a reminder that throughout history, women who dared to break free from traditional roles were often met with suspicion, hostility, and even violence.
Their story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. It reminds us that progress is rarely linear, that for every step forward there are often setbacks and sacrifices along the way.
And it highlights the importance of remembering those who came before us, those who fought for change, who dared to challenge the established order, even a great personal risk. Their stories remind us that the fight for equality is a long and arduous journey, and we owe it to them to continue their work, to never give up on the pursuit of a more just and equitable world.
So even though Pope Joan, didn't actually exist, her story continues to resonate with us because it taps into these fundamental questions about gender, power, and the nature of authority. It challenges us to confront the ways in which women have been marginalized and silenced throughout history.
Yeah.
And it inspires us to imagine a world where those barriers are broken down, where all people, regardless of gender, have the opportunity to reach their full potential.
And it reminds us that history is not just a collection of facts and dates.
Right.
It's a dynamic and evolving narrative shaped by the stories we tell, the legends we create, and the lessons we learn from those who came before us.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here today. We've debunked the myth of Pope Joan, explored the historical context that gave rise to the legend, and delved into the parallel story of Guglielma and Mifreda. But I have to say, even though we know it's not true, there's still a part of me that wishes it were.
I understand that sentiment completely. There's something undeniably appealing about the idea of a woman shattering those glass ceilings, centuries ago, proving that gender is no barrier to leadership and achievement.
It's a reminder that even the most entrenched power structures can be challenged, that change is always possible, and that sometimes the most unlikely stories can inspire us to imagine a different, perhaps even a better world.
And that, I think, is the true power of legends like Pope Joan.
Right.
They remind us that history is not just about the past. It's about the possibilities that lie ahead.
Okay, so we've thoroughly unpacked the legend of Pope Joan, and I think our listeners now have a much deeper understanding of not only the story itself, but also its historical and cultural significance.
We've explored the anxieties and and aspirations of a society grappling with questions of gender and power. And we've seen how even fictional narratives can reveal deep-seated truths about the human condition.
But I think there's one piece of the puzzle we haven't fully explored yet. We've talked about why the legend emerged, but we haven't fully addressed its staying power.
Right.
Why did people believe it for so long,
Right.
and why does it continue to resonate even after being debunked?
That's a great point. What is it about this story that continues to capture our imaginations even centuries later?
I think it's a couple of things. Like on the surface, there's the surprise,
Right.
like the audacity of it.
This woman disguised as a man, becoming pope, like it challenges everything you think you know. It flips the script.
It's like, so out there, you can't help but be drawn to it, even if, logically you know better.
Exactly. And it plays into that human fascination we have with hidden histories. Like, what else don't we know,
Yeah, like there are secrets out there just waiting to be uncovered.
Oh,
Right? Stories that could totally change how we understand the past.
right. Like a historical puzzle that's missing a few key pieces.
And those missing pieces are the ones that keep you hooked, make you want to keep searching.
Right. But I think there's a deeper level to this too. Like it speaks to our values.
Mhm.
The Pope Joan legend, it speaks to people who question those traditional roles of women in society, but especially in the church.
Right.
Because it shows you a world where women could be in those positions of power, challenging the patriarchy, the system that's kept them down for so long.
Like it almost gives you this fantasy of female empowerment.
Yeah. This vision of a world where women are not just equal, but maybe even surpass men in leadership, especially spiritual leadership.
And that fantasy, that desire for equality, that's something that goes beyond just one time period or culture. It's human.
It really is.
But there's that darker side too, right? Like
Yeah.
the reality of what women faced if they challenged the system.
Absolutely. The fate of Guglielma and Mayfreda, that shows you exactly how dangerous it was.
And the fact that people believed the Pope Joan story for so long, even with evidence against it, it makes you think that a lot of folks, men and women, were pretty invested in keeping things the way they were.
Yeah, it's like the legend became a warning.
Right. Like step out of line and this is what happens.
Exactly. And that's what's so powerful about legends and myths. They show you what a society is truly afraid of.
In this case, female power.
Right. And the resistance to change, people clinging to the status quo no matter what.
So even though she wasn't real, Pope Joan's story still speaks to us because it gets at these core issues of like gender, power, who gets to be in charge.
Exactly. It forces us to look at how women have been sidelined throughout history.
And maybe it pushes us to imagine a world where those barriers don't exist anymore.
Where everyone, no matter their gender, can reach their potential.
Okay, so we've pretty much taken apart the whole Pope Joan legend.
Yeah, looked at the history, the evidence or lack of it, those alternative theories, and why people are still so into it.
I think our listeners have a much better grasp on the story now.
And on what it means, like those anxieties and hopes people had about gender and power.
And how even a made-up story can say something true about being human.
Right.
But there's one thing we haven't really dug into yet. It's why the legend lasted so long.
Oh, you mean like why people held on to it?
Yeah, like why did it stick around even after it was clear she probably didn't exist? Why is it still so fascinating to us now?
That is a good question. What is it about this story that just grabs us, even after all this time?
I think it's that surprise factor. Like, think about it. A woman disguised as a man, working her way up, becoming the Pope.
It's almost too good of a story. Like you almost want it to be true.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, what else don't we know about history?
Right. What other secrets are out there, like waiting for us to find them?
Like maybe our whole understanding of the past could be flipped on its head if we just found the right piece of evidence.
And that's part of why it sticks with you, right? It's that what if, that mystery.
But it's also more than just like a good story, right? It says something about us, about what we value.
You're right. The Pope Joan story, it really speaks to people who question the way things are, especially when it comes to women, their roles in society and in the church.
Because it's like this possibility, this world where women are in charge, where those old patriarchal rules don't apply.
Yeah. It's like a dream of female empowerment, Like, what if women weren't just equal, but actually leading the way, especially in something as powerful as the church?
And that idea of wanting that equality, that's something that everyone can relate to no matter what time period you're in.
Definitely. It goes beyond any one culture. It's just human.
But then you have the flip side, that darker part of the story. It reminds you that, like, this wasn't just a fun legend for a lot of women. It was their reality, challenging the way things were. It was dangerous.
Guglielma and Mayfreda, what happened to them? That's the harsh truth.
And people believing that Pope Joan story for so long, even when, the evidence said otherwise, it shows you how much people were invested in keeping things the way they were. Men, women, they wanted that power structure to stay in place.
It almost became this cautionary tale, like, this is what happens if you try to change things.
A warning, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, don't even think about messing with the established order.
And that's how these legends and myths work, right? They tell you what a society is really afraid of, what they'll do to protect the status quo.
In this case, it's female power, challenging that.
Exactly. No matter what.
So yeah, she wasn't a real person, but Pope Joan's story, it still matters. It gets at those big questions, gender, power, who gets to make the decisions.
It forces us to look at how women have been treated, pushed to the side, silenced.
And maybe it helps us, picture a world where that's not the case anymore.
A world where everyone has a chance, no matter if they're a man or a woman.
So we've really gone deep on the Pope Joan legend today.
The history, all those theories, why people still find it so fascinating, it's a lot.
I think our listeners have a lot to think about now. Not just about the story, but about what it says about history, about culture.
It's amazing how even a made-up story can tell you something real about being human.
Yeah. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the legend of Pope Joan. We've explored the history, the evidence or lack of it, and the reasons why this story just won't go away.
We've seen how a story, even if it's not true, can reveal so much about a society, about people.
But other hidden histories are waiting out there to be found. What stories, true or not, can make us rethink what we believe, push us towards a better world. Keep searching, keep asking questions, and keep on deep diving.
Totally.
Until next time.